It's your girl, the Grown Woman Gamer, and today I'm coming at you with another fire commentary. You know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, comment whether you agree with me or not, and don't forget to share if you care. Today we're going to be talking about some of the more noteworthy things that happened in the NBA this week. And this will be a short and sweet video. I'm going to talk about a couple things, and then I want to know what you guys think too. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat have lost 4 games in a row. Most notably, they lost to the Golden State Warriors, and the Warriors were not playing Draymond, Steph, or Clay. They lost to the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers at the time were not playing Harden or Embiid. And then, of course, last night, if you watched the game, they lost to the Brooklyn Nets. So some people are concerned about this team, especially since we saw the confrontation this week as well between Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra and Udonis Haslem. Personally, sometimes I take the more conspiratorial view, and I believe they're tanking. If you look at the top of the Eastern Conference, there's essentially a 4-way tie for the number 1 spot. Now, the Heat had the number 1 spot previously, but they're essentially tied, give it 1 game or so, between the Philadelphia 76ers, the Boston Celtics, and the Milwaukee Bucks. So the reason why I think they could be tanking is because if you can push yourself down a little bit, potentially into the 3rd or 4th spot, you will likely avoid Brooklyn in the first round of the playoffs. So while some people may say this is kind of a weak thing to do, other people will argue that it's smart, because Brooklyn, if Kyrie was able to play those games that they had at home, it's not likely that they would be in the position that they're in where they may have to play in the play-in tournament in order to secure a spot in the playoffs. And Miami knows this, and so does everyone else. But it's really tight all the way through the East, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The second interesting thing that's happening is in the West, more so at the bottom. Phoenix has definitively won the regular season. They've won 60 games, which is 8 games more than Memphis in the number 2 spot, 12 games more than the Golden State Warriors, and even if we're comparing them to teams in the East, the best team in the East has won 14 games less than the Phoenix Suns. So at the top, it's pretty secure. I don't think there will be much movement there. Phoenix is in number 1, Memphis is in the number 2 spot, and the Golden State Warriors are in the number 3 spot. There may be some movement between the Utah Jazz, the Dallas Mavericks, the Denver Nuggets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, because those teams are either, like Utah and Dallas is pretty much tied. Denver and Minnesota are 1 or 2 games behind Utah and Dallas. And then the Clippers are just secure. I mean, when I say secure, they're not secure in winning a championship or anything like that, but they're 7 games behind Minnesota, and they're 5 games in front of LA and New Orleans. So chances are, given that there are not very many games left in the season, they're going to, at the very least, play in the play-in tournament. And where it does get more interesting is with the San Antonio Spurs. They're in the 11th spot, 1 game behind New Orleans and LA. And because the Lakers have been extraordinarily inconsistent, we have absolutely no idea when they step out on the floor, regardless of who they're playing, whether or not they'll win or not. Even if LeBron James scores 40 points, it's possible that they lose to teams that, you would never even expect to contend with them on paper. We really don't know what will happen. And it would not take too many more losses for LA or New Orleans to trade places with San Antonio. Today, there will be a game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the New Orleans Pelicans. To prepare for this, the Lakers did sit LeBron in the last game that they had, I believe, versus the Philadelphia 76ers. So he's had almost 5 days of rest coming into this game, but this is a really important game. I'm going to jump out there and predict that even though the New Orleans Pelicans have made light work of the Lakers in previous games this season, I think the Lakers will win this game, because this is a really extremely important game. The Pelicans played last night, so they're not on fresh legs. LeBron James will be rested. I think everyone in the Lakers organization, from the bottom to the top, understand the importance of today's game because you have these two teams and they need to separate themselves from the Pelicans. And you can't ever count out Greg Popovich-led teams. They have a good enough team to trade places, like I said, with the Pelicans or the Lakers. So we're watching that, and of course we'll see what happens there. Other more notable things that have happened this week. The biggest thing goes back to the Brooklyn Nets. The vaccine mandate was lifted, so Kyrie can now play in the home games, which opens it up big time for them in the postseason, unless of course they end up playing against Toronto. But either way, this is a big deal, and I think that's why some of these teams, the 76ers, the Heat, the Celtics, and the Bucks, they're kind of rethinking their strategy, because I know that they all understand that KD is one of the best players in the NBA. He is arguably the best player in the NBA. And when you add Kyrie to the mix, we've seen those two play together and they've had great success. And I would rather play one of these other teams at the bottom, like Charlotte, Atlanta, or Cleveland, or even Toronto. If I was Brooklyn, I wouldn't want to play Toronto. But if I was one of those top-seeded teams, I would want to play one of them rather than playing against the Brooklyn Nets, where you have two players who are out to prove something, who are kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder to begin with. So those are my thoughts. I appreciate you guys. Tell me what you think. Two things. Number one, do you think the Miami Heat are tanking right now? Do you really believe that there's all this conflict going on in that team, or it's all a gaslight? And number two, who do you got in today's game? Do you think Los Angeles the Lakers are going to win, or do you think the Pelicans are going to win? So that's all I got for you today. Again, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like this video, comment whether you agree with me or not, and don't forget to share if you care. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll be back soon with another fire commentary, and I'm out.